Special counsel Jack Smith is extremely intentional with what he says publicly. So when we actually hear him say something publicly, we pay attention. On Friday, Smith used an expansive filing to publicly push back against Donald Trump's claims of bias in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. Smith's team writing, quote, "It is necessary to set the record straight on the underlying facts that led to this prosecution because the defendant's motion paints an inaccurate and distorted picture of events. The government will clear the air on those issues because the defendant's misstatements, if unanswered, leave a highly misleading impression." The 68-page filing from Smith's team went on to explain in detail how the Justice Department came about investigating the ex-president for his mishandling of classified documents. Smith's team writing, quote, "Far from being a sham, the referral to investigate became necessary after months of efforts, including several rounds of communications with Trump Presidential Records Act representatives failed to confirm that Trump had returned any and all classified information that he removed from the White House," end quote. The filing also pushed back on Trump's requests for additional discovery materials. Smith's team argued that the ex-president's demands for discovery were, quote, "based on speculative, unsupported, and false theories of political bias and animus," end quote. It was an out-of-the-ordinary public show of force by the special counsel's team. Politico notes of the filing, quote, "The approach taken in the legal brief is somewhat unusual for the Justice Department. Though the filing was submitted to U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon, at times it sounded like an opening argument to a jury that Trump could face in the future, or the first chapter of a report meant to detail investigative findings to the public." Joining our conversation now is the former lead investigator for the January 6th Select Committee, Tim Heaphy, and Politico national correspondent Betsy Woodruff Swan. Good afternoon to both of you. Betsy, let me start with you, because it's not that there was a lot of new material in here. If one has read the Mar-a-Lago indictment, the details are there. It's not questionable if one looks at that stuff as to why there's an investigation. It's certainly not a trial, but the reasons for the investigation are stated clearly. Why did Jack Smith's team feel the necessity to do this?
Because they're pushing back against an argument that Trump and his defense lawyers and, of course, allied lawyers have been making in public for countless months now, that the prosecutors really haven't yet provided a fulsome rebuttal of. This document is worth reading for people who are following this from the comforts of their home, don't follow it professionally, because it's a very concise synopsis of basically how we got here. And the subtext, what Jack Smith and his team almost say but don't quite articulate explicitly, is they're accusing Trump and his lawyers of being conspiracy theorists. They're saying that Trump has been pushing this notion that the Justice Department, in cahoots with, quote unquote, the Biden administration, and Jack Smith says whatever that is somehow engaging in wrongful action to try to damage Trump's political prospects. And the point of this filing is to say, that's not true. The Justice Department is acting independently. They explicitly say in this filing that no one on Jack Smith's team has talked to the president or any of his family members, something that is not surprising, but they clearly felt needed to be said. And it's a defense of the work the DOJ is doing and of the independence of the Justice Department from the portions of the executive branch, including the White House, that are closer to the president himself.
Tim, let me read to you from the filing that Jack Smith's team filed on Friday. It says, where the defendants perceive bias, weaponized use of authorities, and a sham referral, all attributed to an undifferentiated, quote, Biden administration. That's what Betsy was just talking about. The record shows only different government agencies with specific portfolios and responsibilities at work to solve an increasingly vexing and concerning problem. That is hardly surprising, and it is in no way, shape, or form supporting the hyperbolic claim of politically motivated operatives launching a crusade against President Trump. The defendants' legal problems are solely of their own making. Talk to me about this. It's very detailed. Who's that for? Is it really for Trump's team to hear that? Is it really for Judge Aileen Cannon? Or as Betsy and Politico are suggesting, is this the beginning of what the argument is going to be?
Yeah, I think it's for all of the above, Ali. I think it is for Judge Cannon, an inexperienced federal judge who in the past has been struck down by the 11th Circuit. I think there's some education of the court that's going on. There's clearly mindful of the public audience and the need for this to be seen as a legitimate prosecution. It's sort of a defense, as Betsy said, of the integrity of the process. It essentially lays out the path to the referral and the subsequent indictment, right? The allegation here is that this is a trumped-up political Biden administration, politically motivated prosecution. The special counsel goes to great lengths to sort of trace the procedural history of, at each step, the attempts to get the documents, the inability to get answers, subsequent discovery of more and more documents, which led to the search warrant and ultimately to the indictment. And that really is meant for, I think, a lot of audiences. There's a deficit, Ali, in terms of what prosecutors can say outside of court and what criminal defendants can say, right? The former president is out there continually impugning the character of the process. The prosecutor doesn't say anything out of court other than in filings, other than in pleadings. So this is perhaps maybe more fulsome than necessary to address the specific discovery claims at issue in the motion, but his opportunity to, as Betsy said, sort of set the record straight about the integrity of the process.
So this is really important, the point you make, that there's a deficit between what prosecutors can say and what the defendant can say, Betsy. But to the extent that this is for Judge Aileen Cannon, one would hope and assume that a federal judge like Aileen Cannon would understand what Tim just said, right? That Trump is out there, and I'm sure there are other defendants in history have been out there, sounding off about whatever they want to sound off on, but that's not legally sound, nor is it important. And there is an indictment, and there is evidence. Is this a harbinger of trouble with Aileen Cannon, or Smith's team worrying about trouble with Aileen Cannon?
There's no doubt that it captures concerns on the part of Smith's team that the judge and the potential jury pool is being exposed to claims that they believe are incorrect and perhaps mendacious about the way the prosecution has acted. And there's one thing that actually is, I believe, news in this document that captures that theme. Trump's ally lawyers had argued that Jack Smith and the people on the prosecution team had failed to share all the material that they want, and specifically that argued that not everyone who needed to see closed caption TV footage from Mar-a-Lago had received full access to that footage in the way that they needed. Jack Smith responds to that in this document, and he says, actually, we've bent over backwards to provide this footage to people. We've even, given hardware to lawyers so they can look at it. And then there's a line that jumped out at me where Smith's prosecutors write, during a phone call, counsel for De Oliveira, one of Trump's co-defendants, so a lawyer for one of Trump's co-defendants, explained that he did not own or have access to a laptop or desktop computer and was instead attempting to review the entirety of the government's discovery on a handheld tablet. In other words, what Jack Smith's team is saying is, hey, these people are complaining that they can't watch the videos we're trying to send them, but at the same time, they're trying, or at least this one particular important lawyer is trying to review the entirety of the discovery that the federal government is making via a handheld tablet, which sounds like an iPad. These are the kind of statements, of course, that prosecutors can't say in TV interviews. They can't say outside of court. But when they file a big, thick document like this with lots of details, what they're signaling to the judge is, please, please, please don't take everything you're hearing from Trump and the Trump-allied lawyers at face value.
Let's talk about that discovery issue, Tim, because one of the things that the Jack Smith team talked about is that they're asking for things they don't need. It seems to be they seem to be implying it's a delay tactic. They will have and they have got the information they need. This has already been discussed in this case, right? How much time the Trump administration will need to review cases, the circumstances under which they can see it, because a lot of this is classified information. What's that matter, and how is that going to affect the process in this case?
So the Jack Smith team, very mindful of the possible use of discovery disputes to delay the proceedings, gave really overly inclusive discovery in this matter. I think in the pleading, it cites 1.28 million pages of documents. So every interview, grand jury transcript, witness statement, document collected, every single minute of closed circuit television footage captured, right? Correspondence between agencies. All of that has been produced because the special counsel saw that they don't want to provide any excuse for there to be this kind of pre-trial litigation that might delay. That's actually been their approach in all of the Jan 6 cases. They have made everything available to all charged defendants. They look at the Jan 6 cases as one case and make every piece of discovery available to every charged defendant out of an overabundance of caution to make sure everyone has access to everything. As you said, Ali, the Trump defense team is now picking out things that they haven't gotten that they claim are relevant. And essentially this pleading explains why that's a fishing expedition. There's no basis on which to believe that any of that information is relevant. It's gamesmanship. It is an attempt to potentially delay the proceedings. And in all of these cases, the two federal cases and the others, prosecutors try very hard to move this toward trial, move this toward resolution, clear the decks of collateral issues, and get the matter adjudicated, whereas the former president and his team are consistently the ones saying, hold on, wait, we don't have everything, we're not ready, right? Pretty indicative to me in terms of who's ready to go, who has a stronger hand, at least believes they have a stronger hand when these cards are shown at trial.
Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the incentive? What? Who's the incentive?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
And this was just a diversion.
Security, please bring up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. What's readiness? What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Right, evac.
She's right in front.
We're facing a heavy sustained attack. They appear to be after the Allspark.
Celebration. The amateurs suicide mission.